Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Self-Care Sunday. Elisa, and I am the curator of Elisa Maria Designs. Primarily, I focus on diamond painting, but I indulge in many creative activities such as rubber stamping and card making and working with clay and sketching, and I am forever a journal writer. And on Sundays, I like to create and design an hour with all of you who are interested in self-care, an hour of connecting to creativity through a higher power. You may call it a higher power, a higher self, a higher mind, a muse, a force, a flow, an energy, the universe, God. I am still in the midst of Miss Crimson here, even though she's upside down. Let me see if I can just get a little shot of her for you guys that are following my progress with Crimson. And maybe today I will be able to get a little diamond painting in with you guys. But usually what happens is I'm just here talking, and you guys are in the middle of your work in progress, so feel free to get your work out, your whip, your work in progress, or you can listen like a podcast, or you can watch. I am on, like, maybe, I think because it was a short week for me, I had my husband home, and then Thursday being Thanksgiving, and then he got sick after, and I really only had 2 days to sit and diamond paint, and that was, I'm saying, how could it be Thursday? It was Thanksgiving. It was this past Thursday, and Friday I did back-to-back whip and chats on Miss Crimson here, and I was looking to curate Friday's whip and chat, and I said, I always forget to put the music on. Let me do that first, and let me do it with, you guys watching, so that you can see kind of what my process is, because I am so into what everyone's process is, and what their workspace is, and what their studios look like, and how they go about setting up to create for the day. And so I actually opened up this video with what is on my TV today, and this was one of my favorite albums to play while I was teaching yoga. And this is actually GIRISH, and I believe that this is Diamonds in the Sun. This is his album, and I was having a love affair with him for a while. His voice, did you ever hear someone's voice and you just connect with it on a level that is just like, oh God, every time I hear that voice, I go crazy. So I feel like that about GIRISH, and I feel like that about Paolo Nutini, who you've probably not heard of because he's a Scottish artist, and he was playing here in Philadelphia, and I don't know what it was for, but my husband said, what do you want for your birthday, or whatever it was, and I was like, oh, Paolo Nutini, he's here. He's here. And here's another appearance by Foofy. I thought I built enough of an infrastructure here that he would not be jumping on the desk, but he's here. In this much space, he found a way to jump up now and be here. So bad. So, yes, I went to go see Paolo Nutini, and music is just so healing and therapeutic, and when someone's voice hits your ear, and it just makes you feel so relaxed and calm, and that's the way I feel with GIRISH. And I really wanted to open this class too with my little symbols that I had that I used to start my class with. Ding! So there's the ding, because that's upstairs in my yoga room. That's not coming back down. So, getting back to connecting to your whatever you call that presence that you may or may not feel around you when you are creating. Like I said, you can call it, I'm really taking that from my own life, but also in reading The Artist's Way, and Julia Cameron does a really good job at, because The Artist's Way is a 12-step program in recovering your creativity through spiritual connection. She connects to God. That's her source. And don't get caught up in semantics. It's a directional flow, and her word for it is God. Other people call it, all the other things that I mentioned, which is also directional flow. A muse, a force, an energy, a higher power, a higher self, a higher consciousness, a higher mind, a flow, the universe. Whatever it is that you connect to. So Julia Cameron does refer to it in the beginning of The Artist's Way, and she speaks to God as I do. I believe that my higher power is and that my creator is God, and that being a creator, everyone is a creator, and that is your gift back, is that you create and you give back through your gift. So like I said, don't get caught up in semantics. It's connecting to a energy that is benevolent and is there to conspire with you. And I think if you've ever read The Alchemist by Paulo Cohelo, I want to get this right, I have it written down here, because it's right from the book, and I read this book once a year. Like January becomes where I do all my programs over again, and The Artist's Way is one. There's not a better time to start The Artist's Way, I think, than on some type of anniversary. I only had one song from GIRISH. then on the anniversary of like a new year, your birthday. Maybe you are thinking about a new venture in your life. You're opening up a store, you're getting divorced, whatever it is. And you begin this creative process of recovering a sense of self. So I begin The Artist's Way every January 1st. I begin it on that day, and I have done it for, let me see, The Artist's Way was published in 1992. It has been published in 40 different languages. It has sold over 5 million copies. But I purchased the book if you're from Philadelphia, then you remember Borders Bookstore. And there was Borders and there was Barnes & Noble. And they were both like on opposite sides of the street. I don't know what it is about Philadelphia. There's a Pat's and a Gino's cheesesteak. There's a Borders and a Barnes & Noble. It's like you have these competing forces, right, in proximity of each other. And I would go into Borders, and this book was everywhere. And this had to be like in 97. Like it was published in, I believe the first print was 92. And it was published in, I think Julia only published little, she did it herself. Like she made Xerox copies and she gave them to her artist friends who were blocked, because she found that the tools that she was using was helping her get unblocked. And so she made this little pamphlet, this little handy book, and then they were passing it along to other people. And so then it went to print, I think from Tarshay publisher, and then it hit 100,000 copies. So I in 97, like it was maybe when I opened up my restaurant in Center City. So I probably got the book then, only because every time I walked in the bookstore, all I saw was this book, and it had a red and tan cover, and it was a picture of a mountain with these cranes painted on, going around the mountain, and it was that painting that I was drawn to. And I would pick the book up and I would put it down, and I'd pick it up and I'd put it down, and then eventually, every time I walked by it, it would fall. It would literally fall in front of me, and I would pick it up and put it back on the shelf, and it would fall again. Then one day I was at the counter and the book was there and it fell. Like it was on like one of those little stands and it fell. And the girl was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Let me," and I was like, "Just ring it up. Just put it in the bag, because every time I come in this store, this book is like, this is a sign. Take me home." And I did. And I'll tell you what I did with it. Do I have it here? Because I lost one copy. I lent it out to somebody. I do have it here. So this is what I used to see every time I went in. Was this painting of The Artist's Way by Julie Cameron. And this sat, much like it did in the bookstore, on my bookshelf. And I just loved the painting. And I took it with me everywhere. I moved, I don't know how many times during this period of my life. I moved all over the place, and this book came with me. And it wasn't until I moved to New York City that I took it off the shelf, and I took it to a park with me and I started to read it. And where I was in New York was actually the area that she opens the book up saying that she's in New York. And it was like thoughts that I had being in this area were written in this book. So it was really freaky. And it became my Bible. And I think, oh my God, when did I have it? 2005. So I bought the book in 97 and I didn't open it up until 2005. And, you know, I was, at that time, it was a very scary place for me to be in New York City. I was a Philly girl, and I just thought, well, New York is just going to chew me up and spit me out. And, you know, I lived directly across from the World Trade Center, and that was still under construction. It was a big hole. And they were constantly like placing dynamite into the West Side Highway and reconstructing. And it really, for someone like me that is so absorbs energy so easily, and at that time in my life, I really didn't, I knew that those things were happening to me, but I didn't know how to protect myself from it, and how to know it for what it was, and how to use it properly. And this was the book that saved my life, because I moved out to New York to continue on into a family business that, okay, we live with our families. Now imagine taking them to work with you. I mean, seriously, you know, I'm sure there are couples out there that are married that could work with one another, you know, and then you bring your in-laws with you to work. And I said to myself, I am in New York City, and I could be anything I want to be, and I am out of here, because I just, this is not healthy. And that's what I did. And I went to an art store, and I was living in there. I was just like, I was there every day. I loved being there. I was there every day, and I was like interested in every little thing that, you know, was in this store that was like 2x4. And it was the only rubber stamp store in New York City. And when I tell you, my girlfriend, because we're now friends, Anna Chang, who was the proprietress of the Inkpad, she crammed a Hobby Lobby into this store. She had everything in this store. It was nothing that you could have wanted that she didn't have. And she was teaching classes. It was crazy. And she came up to me and she was like, "You're in here all the time. Like, do you teach, or do you, you know, what do you do?" And I said, "Teach now." She's like, "Yeah, but you're always walking around with a portfolio." I'm like, "Oh, this is all the stuff that I started that I don't know how to finish, and I'm trying to teach myself." And she's like, "We give classes here. Can I see your stuff?" And I showed it to her, and she said, "No, you're a teacher. How did you do this?" And I was like, "Oh, come on, I'm not a teacher." She's like, "No, take a class. I'm having a class this weekend with two of my best teachers, and and I was like, you teach how to use these things? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And that was it. I was just like, in orbit. And that was, I would not have done that had I not read this book. I was very scared living in New York. I was very anxious living in New York. I was very fearful living in New York. It was a time that was just like, you turn a corner and there was, somebody from the military standing there with a machine gun. It was so unnerving, and I would not have found the strength to do anything other than stay locked up and cryovac. When you're living in Battery Park City, you're literally cryovac from New York. It's like you're not even living in New York. You're living in like a mini paradise. And I wanted to live in New York. So, I was there, but I wanted the real New York. I wanted to live in a tenement building, and I wanted to live in the village. And with this book, there's an exercise in here. If you could not fail, what would you want to do? And I don't know if I wrote it in this book or the book that I actually lined out, but I wrote out what I would do if I knew I could not fail. And right down to the smallest detail, that dream came true. But I failed. I did fail. But every aspect of what I wrote, I probably didn't write, and I can have all this and not fail. That's probably what I forgot to write about. I was writing in the frame of mind that I wouldn't fail, but I did fail. And I probably wouldn't have failed if I listened to that voice. And all this is coming, like, I already know what I want to talk about. And so all this is coming full circle in the magic of, magic just seems like a very, it's not a big enough word for when you are in touch with your creative power, and when you are connected to that muse, that spirit, that force, that mind, that universe, that higher power. And you may hear it, and then you kick yourself like I did, because I was in the learning phase of all this. So you kick yourself, oh, I should have listened to myself. But when you are really working it, and you are really clear and connected about, this is what's right for me. This is the path. There is no fork in the road. It's like the fork comes and you just go the way that you're supposed to go. That's when you begin to build your confidence, and you just, there's a knowing. Some people call it, oh, I'm very intuitive. And there's nothing mysterious or magic or mystic about it. It's you being with you and being very clear about what it is your path is. So, I was curating the class for Friday and showing you guys the music that I wanted to play. And while I was, on the carousel of my TV, I saw a lecture that was an interview. Oh, I wish I could remember what it was on. I wrote it down in my book, but Fufi is laying on it right now. It was a interview with Julia Cameron and another force that I love, Elizabeth Gilbert. Creative force, unbelievable. And the interviewer was getting on my nerves. They were like maybe on a Zoom meeting, and so like it was here's Julia on this little computer, and here's Elizabeth on this computer, and here's the interviewer, and like Elizabeth would say something profound, and before she was done speaking, she would ask Julia, like, what do you think about that? What do you think about what Elizabeth's saying here? But Elizabeth wasn't done talking, and it was like, and the interviewer, when she was like spouting out what she knew about Elizabeth and what she knew about Julia Cameron, I was like, what is this? I don't know. This is just like, she's just annoying me. Probably why I watch so much of Diary of a CEO is because Stephen, who was the curator of that program, it is his channel, his podcast, is very good at letting his hosts speak. And, he's not there to compete with them, and he will be very thoughtful and pensive while they are speaking. And then he will be like, he will ask the questions that you would ask if somebody was sitting across from you. And he's a very good listener, and he's a very good conversationalist. And that is an art in itself, to be a good conversationalist and be very good at what it is that you want to know about the other person and what it is, and like saying something and then forming a question. Like he's not above saying, can you clarify that for me? Or you said this, and what did you mean by that? And it's the same questions that you would ask, being a person that doesn't really understand or know, or maybe didn't think of. And I think to myself, well, he sits down with so many interesting people. How is it that but he just knows the questions to ask, and this girl didn't. And so Julia Cameron had said something, and I wanted to fact check like what I heard. Like, did I hear that? And when I was reading, if you put Julia Cameron in, there was all this information. And I'm like, this is exactly what that interviewer said. Like, she was reading from Wikipedia. And I'm like, you have Julia Cameron and you have Elizabeth Gilbert in front of you, and you're reading from Wikipedia? Like, did you not prepare for this interview? Oh my God. And she really didn't have any kind of like interesting questions about work that they've done. And they were really, really filling in these little juicy morsels of information when it came to creativity and writing. And Elizabeth Gilbert had said, had I not read this book, Eat, Pray, Love would have never been written. And so because of you, Julia, Eat, Pray, Love exists. And I was like, wow, I feel like that about like the changes that I made in my life and the path that I was on. Like, I feel the same way about exactly what it is that she's talking about. And Julia was talking about a new book that she has written, and I think it was called like Right for Life. Now, this woman, the Artist's Way is now 30 years old. It's more than a quarter of a century old. And she was talking about, I'm like, what more can she write about writing when this book that she has written, this toolkit that she has given us about writing, and not just writing, but connecting to a source, a higher power, or your God, whatever that means to you. But she did. She came up with, in the basic book, there are 3 tools, but in the Right for Life, because she has right to write, right, R-I-G-H-T, to write, W-R-I-T-E. And she has now Right for Life. She came up with 2 more tools. So I don't want to get like too far ahead of, or get like too muddled with what the topic of this Self-Care Sunday is about. So just boiling it down to connecting to this power that you have. I just want to first say that this is a benevolent source that conspires to work with you, much like Paulo Cohelo wrote about in The Alchemist, that when you, I have to go back, and when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. Creation begins with a thought, and that is why it is so super important to watch our thoughts. Now, on Thursday, when I sat down to diamond paint, I had a really great opening. And I said, I'm going to do this little 10 by 10 square today. And I had all my little colors out that I needed to do that square. Okay. And I said, I am really pushing it, having this many of my drills out, because when I do this, I make a mistake. So what did I do? I spoke it. I placed the color down. It was the symbol P for Peter, and it was pink, and I put pink on P. And then I went to go put my drills back, and I said, oh, these are not the same color. I put all the drills on the wrong symbol. So, okay, everybody, you can watch me take them off. I'm not going to cut this out because this is real life, real time. I took them all off. I put them all on you. And then I looked, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, this isn't the right color either. And I just sat here holding my head, and I thought, and I looked into the camera, and I said, I can't believe that I didn't make a mistake, and I took them all off, and now I got to put them all back again. But I spoke it, and it was almost like I brought it into a reality, but it really wasn't even real. In my mind, I said, if I have this many out, I'm going to make a mistake. And of course, in my mind, it's all a mistake. So that's why it is so important to watch what you say and watch what you speak out loud, because creation begins with a thought. And this is where, I mean, there's 12 laws to the universe, but the one that everybody knows is the law of attraction. But I'm going to give you all 12 of them. I'm going to do my new editing, and it's going to be like another little frame here. There is the law of divine oneness, the law of vibration, the law of correspondence, the law of attraction is the fourth one. And so what came to mind when I said, oh, we have 12 universal laws, but much like yoga, and you have the yamas and the niyamas, learning them, and it's the same thing with morals and ethics. You know, you can't jump to the fourth rung on the ladder without knowing that the other three are part of the foundation. So before you get to the law of attraction, you know, divine oneness, vibration, that's a big one. And then you're trying to manifest without knowing what the law of correspondence is before you get to the law of attraction. After attraction, you get inspired action, transmutation of energy, cause and effect, compensation, relativity, polarity, rhythm, and gender. So undoubtedly, like I said, everybody knows the most talked about universal law being the law of attraction, and that it is used for manifestation. And the law is that like creates like, and that you get what you focus on. Not only that, but you have to believe that what you are thinking about and what you are trying to create, that you believe in it. So if you want love, but you don't express love, you are telling your conscious mind what your priorities are. People will say, oh, well, you're putting that out into the universe. Well, where is the universe? The universe is inside you. That's what the universe is. Nothing is out here. Everything is in here. So it's similar to the law of vibration. It is important to learn how to vibrate at a higher level, and how to apply it. And this is where I would get lost at, you know, there were things that were universally true for me, just like my morals, just like my ethics. And there were things that I knew that I didn't have to learn. And one of them being is that the truth loves me. I've been saying that since I was a little girl. And I hope that I can impart this for all of you that find themselves in a situation where you seem to always be defending yourself. You know that you're a good person. You know that you meant no harm. You know that you have compassion and you have empathy and that you work hard and you do the right thing. And yet you have these people around you that want to say these things behind your back, or make up things about you, or say things about you that aren't true. And you might come to a time in your life where it's like, I don't really know why these people don't like me. Like, I'm a good person. And my girlfriend Denise really tried to get this through to me when we first met. She's like, Elisa, you walk into a room, you're a bright light, you're an open book, but you don't know how to protect yourself. Not everyone is your friend. There are people out there that want to hurt you because you are the person that you are. They want to hurt you because you are good and you are kind and you are, and I was not ready to receive that. I was like, well, I'm not going to change because these people over here are nasty. So this is who I am and I'm not going to change. But there is a hatred of the good, and it's so hard to hear. If I could find the essay, there was an essay written about Marilyn Monroe, of all the people in the world, and it was about the hatred of the good for being good, if you can believe that. And it's an outstanding essay, and I will find it and I will put a little link on there. It's a fast read, but you will get it. And that's when I got it, and it was actually through my husband, and he's like, you love Marilyn Monroe. Who doesn't love Marilyn Monroe? You know, not, I shouldn't even say Marilyn Monroe, Norma Jean. Who doesn't love Norma Jean? When you get to know the creator that Norma Jean was, Marilyn Monroe was a creation of her mind, and that girl turned it on. I remember seeing an interview where a reporter was interviewing her, and she's like, do you want to see her show up? And he was like, what do you mean? She's like, Marilyn, you want to see her? And he was like, oh yeah. And like, she literally shape shifted, and she was on the set of Niagara, and everything about her changed. The way that she held her body, the way that she walked, the way that she spoke, where her top lip didn't move, the diction in her voice. Marilyn Monroe was her, talk about an artist, her creation. And so when you get to the person, when you take the mask off and you get to learn about Norma Jean and you read this essay, you're going to understand what I'm talking about. And so even though I had this tool of knowing that the truth loved me, I would find myself in situations where I was defending myself against people that didn't care. They didn't care. They were like, yeah, she's good, she's kind, she's compassionate, you know, she'll do it, you know, we can ask her, she'll do it. And I would, you know, do things because I was nice and kind and compassionate. And, you know, in the end, people talked about me anyway, you know, so, and I would find myself in these defensive situations. But when I read that essay and I realized, well, you know, you might not want to believe it, but the truth loves you, and this has landed in your lap. And I can remember my girlfriend Denise telling me about this stuff, about, you know, trying to protect myself from people in situations like this. And now in my life, when something comes up and you ask me something, I will give you an answer one time. And if that's not good enough for you, that's your problem. I'm not going to stand here and defend myself, because the truth loves me, and whether you believe me or not is of no. I have absolutely no interest in whether you believe me or not. So I just move on with, you know, take it or leave it. I don't really care. And eventually it does come around where the truth does show up. Things do land in my lap. And the other thing that I have always said in my life where I would find myself in these situations where I said something that, that I believed very strongly in, or in my younger life, I knew what I wanted. I was very clear. There was not a lot of congestion in my life, and there wasn't a lot of static in my life. And so I would find myself being very clear about what I wanted. And if I went to try and manifest what it was that I wanted, at the time I wasn't using that word manifest, but I was trying to reach to the point B of what I wanted, and someone was in my way, I would be like, thank you for your advice, but I'm going to move on. I'm going to find someone that's going to help me, that's going to conspire with me to getting to my goals. And that is why I think, I get older. I got older. I got married. I had a child. I had a pregnancy where my son came 16 weeks early, and I was not married. I was a single mother. The relationship was already over. I did not know I was pregnant, because I was changing my birth control every month. And every month it was giving me, I had headaches, I had like migraines, and then I had to get off of that birth control. And then I went on another one, and I was bleeding profusely, and I had to get off of that one. And then, I was missing a period, and I was getting leg cramps, and I had to get off of that one. And then my doctor had said, listen, Elisa, if this is like the last birth control pill I can put you on, and if this doesn't work, then we're gonna have to find something else for you. And I said, okay. And I believe it was at that time that I got pregnant, because it was just such a low dosage. And you're going on a birth control, and then you have to take a month off, and then get regulated again, and then go back on it, and then get off a month. And I was under all this tension with this relationship. I was like in a new job. I was working for real estate development. I loved that job. I was there from like 5:30 in the morning until almost midnight. I loved my job. Again, creation, blueprints, architects, engineers. I just was like this, seeing something jump off a page, and buildings and being created, and I just loved it. I loved it. So he was not moving in his life, and he was jealous, and he wouldn't accompany me to like things that I had to do for business, and I just was like, oh boy, like this is over, and we just have to move on. But I was already pregnant, and then when I think I was still taking birth control, which was, thank God it was a low dosage, because I was aborting the pregnancy on my own. And then I just got off of it, and I was like, oh, I can't take all this bleeding that I'm going through, and let me just get off of it. And did not know. And then I went to my doctor. I was like, what the heck is going on? And he's like, oh, well, you're pregnant. And I was like, what? What? And so like I was a young mother, and I was on my own. And then I got married, and then, I was working from home, so I could raise my son, and I was, working 2 jobs. I was trying to make ends meet. It wasn't easy. And so that voice that I had in my younger life gets tamped down. And I didn't know about yoga, and I didn't know about meditation. I was, working out and all, but I didn't know about these other things that I could do where my voice didn't have to be drowned out. And I think that the voice, the whispers, they get louder. The whispers then become a scream, and then the scream becomes like almost like a breakdown, a burnout, you kind of feel like you can't cope. And it's like, you have so much static and congestion around you, because you have so much responsibility, to yourself, which gets last on the list. You know, I had the responsibility to my child, to my job, to keeping a roof, keeping us safe and secure. And like, there's no time for me. And it wasn't until I actually moved out to New York and started reading The Artist's Way, and I met Anna, and I went to work for the Ink Pad, and Anna had said to me, will you come with me to a writing class? And I think I went through this before, and I had just been writing a little bit. Well, not really a little bit. You're writing in the morning. You're writing 3 pages in longhand when you're doing The Artist's Way. And but Anna was talking about like real writing. Like this is stream of consciousness writing. This is a brain dump every morning. She's talking about like real writing, and I was like, oh no, I'm not a writer. You know, she's like, oh please come with me, and it was, you know, exercises in writing. And what I found out is that voice was returning through writing. I was becoming very clear, and I believe, like, even though I was working for Anna and I was doing a lot of creative art projects, and I was developing art classes, and I was giving classes and taking classes, I never had the effect or it mimics meditation. Absolutely. I never had the effect that I had with diamond painting. So even when I did Zentangle, you know, I think Zentangle is something that, yes, there's the aspect of the Zen, and then there's the tangle and you're creating, but I think it's too short of a window to really get the effect that you get with diamond painting. And then there's the other layer of diamond painting, and I say it a lot, is like that you are creating an organization out of chaos. And that might be what is going on in our heads. There's a lot of, I call it congestion now. There's a lot of congestion in our head. And that's why the morning pages, again, I call it congestion, because I think of it as like a traffic jam. When you get up in the morning and you write in longhand and you just brain dump, you know, one more day to go. Tomorrow's Friday. I have to pick up cat litter on my way home from work. I can't wait for my 3-day weekend. Whatever is going on, it's like all those little things that are floating on the top of our mind. Like when you're writing, you're kind of like, where am I going with this? Like, I'm just writing like what's on the top of my head. That's the low hanging fruit. That's the stuff that we wake up with and we do. But then the congestion starts to clear, and then you're in the traffic jam, and you find you're like, oh, that lane's moving, so I'm going to go move over to that lane, and then that lane's moving. And as you write more and more and more, and then the congestion starts to lift, and then all of a sudden you're on the freeway and you're just, you know, flossing to wherever it is that you're going. And then the real experience happens where your hand is just flying across the page. And I was like that before I started to film. I started to come up with ideas, and I knew that I was connected to that source. And, you know, again, tell me where you want me to go. Tell me what you want to do. Tell me what you want to say, and to whom. What are my next classes going to be? And that's when there's a direct connection between the written word that you are writing with your hand and the heart. And there's also a connection with creation and divinity. And so you are in that experience, and when you're in the flow and you are in a conscious contact with a higher power, when you're creating and connecting to that power, which is yourself, you are the universe, you are the higher power, because you just got all the junk out of the way. You can't solve the problem with the same mind that knows what the answer is. I think that's the easiest way I can say it. So when you are down here with all the gunk that's in your brain and all, you know, the family's telling you this, and your girlfriends are telling you that, and then you have your boss that's in your ear, and then and you have all this chatter going on. You watch people. I love to people watch. I will watch people sit down, and I get it's like 4 seconds, especially if somebody comes in and I'm sitting in a cafe, and I'm always either just sitting back with my coffee and enjoying this beautiful blend that I have, this organic blend, this fair trade blend that came from this part of this country and has this notes in it. And yeah, I really am part of the coffee culture, and I want to know what kind of notes went into the soil and what kind of sun was hitting this plant, and I'm all about the coffee, and I'm all about just like I'm experiencing a Chateau Neuf du Pape. I'm just like a connoisseur of coffee, and I will watch another woman come in and sit down and look around. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. They can't be with themselves. They can't. Their brain hasn't been dumped of all the nonsense. So these things come up and they're like, I don't want to deal with that right now. And I'll tell you something else. Elizabeth Gilbert said something very, very, very profound during that lecture that I was listening to. And one of the question was for Julia Cameron, and the young woman had said, I'm a young mother, and I have 3 children, and I have like play dates in school, and this and that, and a husband in the house, and then I can't get up in the morning and write. And can I write at night? And Julia Cameron said, if that's the time that you have to write, then something is better than nothing. And I'm like, no, they're called morning pages. And I had already had the answer in my head, but I'll give you Julia's answer. And Julia said, when you write in the morning and you do this brain dump, you are creating your day. And I was like, oh gosh, I just love that. Oh, you're setting the trajectory for your day. When you write at night, you're recounting what already happened. And we're creators, so we want to create our day, right? We're here for the self-care, for the help. I don't want to have a lousy day. I don't want to be reactive to all the stimulus around me. I want to respond to it. I want to stay in my center, and I want to be calm. I want to be the eye of the storm, not the storm. We could be the storm. But I want to be the eye of the storm where it's calm. And so she said, the narrator said, oh, did you hear that, Elizabeth? Like, what do you think about that? You write, blah, 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 blah. I was like, oh my God, this girl's so annoying. Oh, but God, give me strength. And Elizabeth said, I put a question out on my social media. I have about 100,000 people that follow me on Facebook. And I asked, what is the biggest roadblock to you writing? And the answer across the board was, I don't have the time. And the narrator began to ask another question. She said, no. I'm going to tell you again. I was on Facebook and I asked my followers, what was the biggest problem? And they said they didn't have enough time. And you didn't get it, and you didn't even laugh. They're on social media and they don't have the time. So the question was for actually Elizabeth Gilbert, and Elizabeth Gilbert said, don't let me get on your Facebook page and see what you've been doing. You have 3 children. You do all the things that you have to do with them. And then you go to bed. They go to bed at 8:30. You go to bed at 8:30 and you wake up at 4:30. That's 8 hours of sleep. And you write for an hour or an hour and a half, whatever it is, before you have to get your kids up. And let me tell you something. You're a totally different person than the person that woke up. You know why? You haven't given yourself a chance to have the old person show up yet. I think of that Taylor Swift song. Oh, no, Taylor can't come to the phone right now. She's dead. When you write in the morning And just imagine getting up in the morning and being that person that's carrying all this around. But then you get up in the morning and you've done a brain dump and you have a trajectory for your day. Things are clicking and snapping. You're getting those kids up and out of the door. They might be pressing your buttons, but you know how to respond. You're not going to react. You're a totally different person. And it's such a beautiful thing. And so what I wanted to say is that when you find yourself connected to that creativity and that divinity, and for me, it's writing. When you find yourself in this flow that is diamond art, right? You are unraveling your mind in a way. You're creating the beauty out of the chaos. You know, you have this canvas in front of you with like this another language, this grid, and you're putting all your colors together and you're organizing. When you are in your studio, and by studio I mean it could be your bedroom, you could be in your bed, you could be on your living room floor. I'm in the middle of my living room. When you hear that voice, it's going to sound like a little whisper saying something to you. Something comes up, something that you're thinking about. Keep a pen and a paper next to you. Jot it down really quick because it's almost like a dream. It's like the window opens and closes really quick. Maybe that's when you take a break from your diamond painting and you're like, what is this thing that just came up? Write it down and explore it later. Maybe explore it now. But I want you to have that experience of leaning in, because that little voice and that little whisper that's been so drowned out, that's you. And I want you to start asking it questions. What do I need to know here? Why is this coming up? You know, okay, am I thinking about this? What was that I just heard? You know, and then when you make that connection, and again, maybe you do decide to take a break and maybe you do decide to write. That's the connection between the heart and the hand. Oh, it's such a beautiful thing. And I want you to all experience that. And if you have a disability that prevents you from writing or prevents you from writing, like if you were to do morning pages, if this is something that is sparking your interest and you can't write for, you know, I want to have this experience. And, you know, I get on your phone and get your voice recorder and just dictate whatever it is that you would write. You can do that. So another thing about the artist way was Julia talks about the creative well, right? We go fishing for our ideas in the well, but if the well is empty, it's kind of like the glass being empty, the cup is empty, we have to fill the cup. You know, there's you kind of get like blocked and you kind of get like stuck. And so she developed another tool. It's not just the morning pages, it's the artist dates, where you and you alone take yourself out on a date. And the date could be anything. It could be that you, for me, I think I shared this before, I go to a neighborhood that I haven't been to before. I like to take photographs. I like to maybe go to a park or a different part of a park. You know, just walking in a different area in this neighborhood that I'm in. Now everyone is decorated for Christmas. I like to look at everybody's window and maybe take pictures of different, you know, decorations and stuff. And that's my artist date. And what happens is that this seeps into your unconscious mind and it becomes where your mind dips into when it is thinking about creating something. And then the third tool, that there's 3 tools in the artist way. So it's the morning pages, it is the artist date once a week. You might decide to go to a restaurant. Now I know that's scary for a lot of people. It was for me. I made myself do it. I figured, listen, I could always ask for the check and just leave and just say, wrap it up if I feel this uncomfortable. What was more uncomfortable for me was going to a movie by myself. And then I was like, why am I putting myself in these uncomfortable situations that I'm not ready for? One day I will be. I don't have to eat the world. Like, lower the bar, Like, these are things that you could do, not that you have to do. So that was another lesson that I learned, to lower the bar. And it became where, okay, maybe I don't go to that new restaurant by myself. Maybe I go to the supermarket and I pick up a fruit or a vegetable that I've never had before. And I learn how to prepare it. That's creativity. Maybe I go to a museum where they have some kind of open house, open day, free day. Because museums could be expensive, but we all want to experience the masters and be able to have that to do. Again, walking. And then you do these things on your own, because if you're doing them with someone else, then your consciousness is mixed with their consciousness, and are they having a good time, and they're talking to me, and you need to just be with yourself. You need to be with yourself, and you need to be able to hear that voice. And then the third thing was my grandmother's thing, when her granddaughter would be like getting on her nerves. She would say, go for a walk. That was my grandmother's answer for everything. Elisa, go for a walk. I'll be here when you get back, but go think about what it is that you want to say, because you're all over the place. Go for a walk. And going after I did all my writing this morning about the points that I wanted to do for Self-Care Sunday, and for I was teaching myself this new editing tool. I wanted to be able to slice my video and stick something in the middle. Scorsese over here. Oh, and that's another thing. Julia Cameron, she's like a Rubik's Cube. She's more like them Russian dolls that come in a box. I thought I knew everything I needed to know about this woman. She's 75. I've been going with this book since 1997. I mean, I didn't open up till 2005. That's what. I don't know. Do the math. Anyway, I need a calculator right now. Can you believe I ran a restaurant? 2 of them, 3 of them, 4 of them? I think, yeah, maybe 4. And when I realized that this girl was reading from Wikipedia, I'm like, well, let me read the rest. She was married to Martin Scorsese and had a baby. Who knew? I think she was married to James Cameron, or maybe she took his name. So, I mean, yeah, maybe she wasn't married to James Cameron. Who knows? Or maybe he was the boyfriend that said to her, you have the tools that helped you get unblocked, because she was like a lot of artists, they rely on some kind of influence to loosen themselves up. And she was an alcoholic, and she was cocaine. And she said that it was Billy Mays. And this was something else I recently found out about her. It was Billy Mays, who was Frank Sinatra's she called him a handler, manager, arranger. But Billy Mays gave her a book on Ernest Holmes, The Creative Mind. And I was like, oh, wow, I've been reading The Creative Mind, The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes since Borders closed, and I had to go to Barnes and Noble. And there's these little magazines that come out, kind of like the Reader's Digest size, and it's called Science of Mind. And there was always a printed essay from Ernest Holmes, like from the early 1900s, 1910, 1913. He wrote these essays about the spoken word and about your thoughts and the law of attraction and manifestation. Frances Scoville, the same thing. I can't remember the name of her book. My girlfriend Denise gave it to me, and when she was trying to get through my thick head, that what you focus on is what you're going to manifest. So the third thing was the walk. And so after I got done with writing, and I was like, well, now I'm going to go take my little artist walk by myself and let all this kind of marinate in my head. And then get into my video for Self-Care Sunday. And I just had like spirit just said like, something to me. And how am I going to say this? I know some of you are going through a hard time right now. And probably the hardest thing in the world that you can do is sit with these emotions that you're having, because some of them are scary, and you're it takes a lot of courage. It does. And maybe it's just a sentence or two that you write down. And I when I was going through a scary time where I didn't know what to do next and what was going to happen, and there was, my son had moved to Albany. I was getting divorced. My ex-husband was in New York. My parents are another state over. And it's kind of like, well, I'm not just getting divorced. I am giving up businesses and my role in those businesses, which was a creator. And I carved that out for myself because I didn't want to compete with anyone, especially his family. I'm not looking to, it was just ridiculousness. I don't even want to get into it. It's just so stupid. I'm not going to argue with you over buying manila folders. Ridiculous. And, so I carved out what my niche was, and that was being the photographer that I am, and being the creator that I am, and being, in social media and talking to customers. And I had some really great customers. My sister-in-law's niece called me one day, and when I answered the phone, she almost broke my eardrum because she was telling me that this huge influencer was in my restaurant, and nobody was in the restaurant. And I looked around, and I saw this beautiful girl and her husband, and they were the Hendrixes, Cezanne and Steve Hendrix. She almost broke my eardrum. She's in your restaurant. I was like, okay, all right, I will go over and say hello, maybe. But right now they're eating. So, I wasn't, I spoke to a lot of people. I had a lot of people that were like, they would just fall over themselves about being in the restaurant. And I would be like, hey, you know what? Do you mind? Can I capture you on camera? Can I have you do an endorsement for, that you're here? And they loved it because the restaurant was already established. It was Lombardi's Coal Oven Pizza, America's first pizzeria. There were a lot of celebrities that walked in and out, and I didn't bother anybody. I feel as though, you're not working. You're here to enjoy yourself and eat a meal. But if someone knew who I was and they walked up to me, we had great social media. If you look at Lombardi's now, there's nothing going on. Nothing. I'm gone. So social media is gone too. I don't even know why I got on that tangent about, the restaurant and everything. I guess I'm going to have to go back. I guess I'm going to have to pause here and go back and see what the hell it was that I was talking about. But so before I went on my tangent about, the restaurant and all, and I was like, I gave a lot up. I didn't just walk away from a marriage that was, never really was going anywhere. So and then being a yoga teacher too. And so, I have the tools in my bag through yoga. And then I have the tools in my bag through my writing. And I have my tools in my bag from my grandmother and life and experiences. And yet I couldn't tap into any of them. And that's where I become blocked, when I get overly emotional about the heavier things that are going on in my life. And so I understand. I could say I understand. I probably don't. But if you are listening, you know I've reached out to a few of my listeners that you're in my thoughts and you're in my prayers. And I do send out that, when I am meditating, I do send out that vibe, that prayer, that you find, comfort and that you feel it. And I will tell you, when I had my son and it was life and death, because he was 16 weeks early, and people prayed for me, I knew that people were praying for me. And I felt a protection around me. And later on, I found out that, you know, there were prayer groups for this young girl in this neighborhood who, you know, it was life or death situation for me and for my son. And it's a miracle that we're both here. And so I felt that. And so I do my best to keep the intention and the person, even though we've never met and I don't know what you look like and where you live. And I keep my intention on that person. And I do send that out to you. And if it's not writing, if it's not diamond painting, if it's not seated meditation, that brings you peace, or, you know, going, you know, to a church, or just being with family or friends, or talking, whether it's professionally or with, you know, friends and family, pick something, even if it's just for a little while, even if you just put on a piece of music. You know, everything comes full circle, and I'm going back to, because I'm searching my mind for something that I can give you that would give you some comfort, even if it's just for a minute. I can't tell you how many times music has touched my life. I mean, I have had songs bring me to my knees, because I'm like, does this person know me? You know, it's like a validation. You know, when no one else understands, music can be that therapy that does understand. So maybe you don't have to do anything other than just put some music on and listen to something that makes you feel good inside. Yeah. And know that there's a girl here in Philly that's sending you all the love. And so I am going to, where's my cat? He was here for the longest time. I didn't even want to put the camera on him because he was acting up. He was just acting up. And I'm going to end my little session with you guys here. And I would love to hear from you guys, love to hear what you think. Are you writing? Are you doing something else? Is it just the diamond painting? What do you want to see more of? Should we go through all the universal laws? So, you know, why should the law of attraction get all the glory, you know? Because the law of attraction is sitting on 3 other laws that are very important. And so, like, maybe we go through that. I don't know. I am actually kicking around the idea of a Patreon, of going into, like, where you have more of a contact with me, whether it's like a Zoom where we can meet one-on-one, or maybe we can meet as a group, or maybe I'm having, you know, restorative classes. I am certified in Vinyasa. I'm certified in Yin Yoga. I am certified in restorative yoga. Maybe we have a yoga class. Maybe we have a Zoom meeting. Maybe we have, you know, going a little bit deeper. Maybe you guys do the artist way with me. January 1st, we could do it together. You know, and that was the other thing with Julia Cameron. She wrote this book, and in the back, she really wrote this book. She was saying that her boyfriend had said, you should turn this into a book, because she was just Xeroxing pamphlets, and she was giving them to her creative friends that were blocked. And he's like, no, this is a book. You have to bring this to the masses. And she said, I don't want to charge for it. I think that it should be free. But it became, you know, bigger than her in some way. But she does write in the back that she encourages you to get friends together and to have an artist way circle. So maybe you guys do this with me. What do you think? Is it something that you think that you would want to do? Maybe you just go to a, oh, I don't believe this. Maybe you go to a bookstore and you look at this. Or I would say, let's do right for life. But she added 2 more tools to that. And again, she added a 4th and 5th tool. So kind of like the laws of the universe. I don't want to go to, you know, tool 4 and 5 if you're not really on tool 1, 2, and 3. Oh my God, I can't even count. I can't even count. You want me to do math? And I'm laughing because I found in here my husband's celebration of 50 years, and we were just friends, and this was his invitation. And who knew one day I would have married this little boy right here. This little guy right here I would have married. Who would have known? All his friends. Here, I should see where I bookmarked what it was about. It's so funny because it has something to do with mail. And I don't think I would have bookmarked this because I knew he was a postman. All right, I'm gonna read what's in here. Transport of the mails, M-A-I-L-S. Transport of the human voice. Transport of flickering pictures. In this century, as in others, our highest accomplishments still have the single aim of bringing men together. There we go. The end. Okay, guys, I will see you. I was going to be playing with clay today, and I figured, oh gosh, no, the day's just flying by me. Let me do my self-care Sunday, but I am really, I need to get my hands in some clay, so I might be doing that tomorrow if my husband doesn't say, hey, it's Sunday and I'm home, because he's home Monday too. Bye, my loves. Create the world that you want to live in. Tell me something, anything. I don't care. Tell me anything. Okay, love you guys. Bye. Foof, are you around? Nope. Foofy's MIA. Was going to let him say goodbye.